Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Monorail Monday. This is episode 2 of season 2, and we're going to have a lot of fun today talking about some interesting things. I've dug deep into the archives, deep into the safe, the vault, to pull some of this item out, and I think you're going to like this. Voiceover Lord, can you tell us today's episode title?
Today's episode, Disney Traditions.
Ah, yes. Disney Traditions. This is what I've got for you today. Disney Traditions. This is what happens when you start working at Walt Disney World. They send you right away through Disney Traditions, a little bit of the history and tradition of working at Disney, at the parks, a little bit of history of the parks. This is the folder that we got, late 80s. And we're going to go over some of this today. Look at all this juicy material in here. We've already gone over the 1992 cast member handbook in season 1. We're not going to review the entire handbook again, but we may highlight a couple of things and just take a couple of quick glimpses at some of the pages. So let's jump into the Disney Traditions. When I went and got hired at Disney, went to interview, got hired pretty quickly, and was basically told Tomorrowland merchandise is the place you want to be. I really wanted to get into monorails, but I was going to have to put monorails off for a little bit. It was basically came down to foods, custodial, or merchandise. And I took merchandise. I got tossed into Tomorrowland merchandise. So when I was hired for Tomorrowland merchandise, I ended up working in a bunch of different areas. We will cover Tomorrowland merchandise at a later episode. We'll go over what that was like. First thing we have to show, this atlas. And this atlas shows a map of the park, as well as a map of the utilidors. And that's how you find your way underneath the Magic Kingdom. Once we open it up, you can see we have a map of Walt Disney World itself. As you can see, no Animal Kingdom. They've got the studios here, but they just have it marked. It's marked as that's where it's going to be. There is no detail for the studios. They don't have a map of it yet. And you can see there is no Animal Kingdom or anything like that over here. Other things of interest, note River Country and Discovery Island, still there. Still on the old map. On the back of the atlas, they have a map of Epcot. And Epcot as it was in the late 80s. So you can see a few pavilions referenced there that don't even exist anymore. So one of the first things I got here at the beginning of the folder is Vista Federal Credit Union. You can get signed up for the credit union at Disney. And I've even got a paper here. I'm not going to show it because it's got a bunch of personal information on here. But I was assigned the male locker room at, which is under Fantasyland basically. Fantasyland locker room. And I was assigned locker 2277. Be sure to write that down in your notes because there may be a quiz later. Right here we've got the cast member handbook. This is the 1988 edition of the cast member handbook. Welcome to Walt Disney World. It's pretty similar to the 1992 edition. It has a few updates in there, but most of the policies and information is fairly similar. You have information on cast parking, your home address, payroll. So this is the 1988 cast member handbook. What else do we have in here? Magic Kingdom merchandise. So this is the guide to the Magic Kingdom merchandise rules, regulations, and the law. And the merch was important then, not quite as today. I mean, merch is even more massive than before. Here's an opening letter from the powers that be to anybody who's new into merchandising. The roots of merchandise lie deep in our company history, from the early years when Oswald the Lucky Rabbit first appeared on candy wrappers to the present, when our efforts still surpassed even the most optimistic expectations. Disney merchandise has played and continues to play an important and vital role in contributing to the overall success of the Walt Disney Company. And then it goes into a little bit more information on some of the different themed areas. Main Street USA, it tells the restaurants, the merchandise that's there. I was in Tomorrowland, so it tells you a little bit about Tomorrowland merchandise, locations, and information, restaurants in that area. They wanted you to know as much information as possible. I worked at the Skyway, the Spaceport, and the Space Place, and as well as the film kiosk in Tomorrowland merchandise. We'll go over this in a little more detail in another episode when we talk about Tomorrowland merchandise specifically. But this is something I got early on because they knew I was going to merchandise. I also have a memorandum here, merchandise cash handling class. And this was where they teach you about cash handling, the procedures, the policies for processing charges, as well as spotting counterfeit money. Now, when I started, there wasn't any swiping the credit card or just punching in. We had the old style charge machines where you put the card down, you put the paperwork with the carbons on it, and you take it and you drag the big piece over to make an imprint on the receipt. Also got a sheet in here, tells me exactly what to do in case I call sick. Next on our folder here, Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom, Epcot Center, and Studios. That was brand spanking new. It was coming attractions back at the time. So right here we get a park staffing of what the numbers of the parks look like. You can see that Magic Kingdom had 5,200 full-time cast members, 1,100 part-time, 1,500 seasonal. Epcot had 4,400 full-time cast members, 300 part-time and 600 seasonal. You can see these numbers, and these numbers are quite different now. There are a lot more cast members in all of these parks as the capacities and the ride number have increased. All these numbers are much higher. Plus, you have a lot more college program. Back then, there were college program people, but there were fewer and far between. You can also see the operating area staffing for the different parks, as well as some of the support areas. There's 2,500 support staff, full-time support staff. And right here I've got a quiz. There's a history quiz, and it has multiple choice answers on the next page. So pretty much pulled the answers from it. Some of the answers for the quiz are things like, when did Walt Disney announce plans for the Florida project? When did Walt Disney World Vacation Kingdom open to the public? What is MGM's role at the Disney-MGM Studios? You know the answer to that? Do you know the answer to that one? Name recognition. Their quiz, the answers they give here, name recognition is MGM's role at the Disney-MGM Studios. And for those of you who still can't help but call it MGM because of the Disney-MGM reference, just a little anecdote. I've shared it on Twitter many times. One of the things they wanted us to do was constantly reinforce it was Disney MGM Studios. It's not MGM Studios, it's Disney MGM Studios. So we were basically expected to correct everyone who said, where's the bus to MGM? You mean Disney MGM Studios? So we are constantly asked to correct guests. And all these many years later, people still call it MGM. And we've also got a Disney Parks Traditions and Studio History. Had a little bit of the history of the studios, the Disney Studios. And here's another quiz. I'm not sure, we probably ran out of time this day or something and didn't get to follow up. But it lists the locations for the following for all three parks: First Aid, Lost Children, Baby Care, Camera Rentals, Restaurant Reservations. Yes, back in the day, you had to make restaurant reservations in particular locations. There wasn't any of this reserve it 6 months in advance kind of stuff. You just showed up at the park and you made reservations at the park. I'd like to eat at this place later today. I prefer doing it that way. I like the spontaneity. Yeah, you had to go early in the day to make reservations for certain things, but it's easier to get reservations for popular places. You just had to say, first thing, I'm going to go get reservations for this. There wasn't getting up at 4 a.m. on your computer to try and reserve it 6 months ahead of time on the chance that you might want to eat there in 6 months. No, we were going to the park in the morning and we just went in, got reservations. Hey, we're going to eat at Liberty Tree Tavern later. So that's how we did it back then. They also had methods of transportation you can use other than your private car to take to get to the studios or Epcot or Magic Kingdom. They also asked explanations of the following: a 3-day World Pass, a 4- and 5-day All Parks Pass, a 1-day pass, a 3-season salute, annual passport, hard ticket party, and a complimentary admission, which was issued after May 1st of 1989. And here you can see there's a map of Epcot and a list of locations. We were asked to fill in the locations on this map. Can you fill in the locations here on a blank map? I bet a lot of you can. I bet a lot of you can. This one's a pretty easy one for most of you. Blank map of the Magic Kingdom. What is each land? What's this land? What's this land? And here's an early map of the studios. And a couple of different things. You see, not that many attractions, kind of like now. Only the park was a fraction of the size it is now, and it was much more of a working studio production kind of thing. They gave us a blank one of these. I have an idea. It's a form you filled out. If you had some idea that you wanted to share that might make things a little bit better, you would fill in this form. It gave you a lot of different choices as far as your department, your location, what the idea was, your signature, and you would place this in a box in the I have an idea box in your location, and maybe, just maybe, they would use your idea. And the last item in this traditions folder, your role in the Walt Disney World show. It's a little booklet, and on the back it says, look to the name Walt Disney for the finest in family entertainment. Look at this book. You can see this cutout opens up to the picture. And this is actually a cast. This is a cast photo from Disney from the 10th anniversary, 1981. So I'll share a few clips from this book here. Here's a aerial map overlooking the Polynesian and the Seven Seas Lagoon, Contemporary in the distance, the Magic Kingdom. As you can see, no Grand Floridian. There's the plot of land where it was, where it ended up. The next page says you're going to become a Disney information expert. And it basically says we must be walking, talking, smiling information booths. It's estimated that on a busy day, more than 500,000 questions are individually handled by Disney hosts and hostesses. That's a lot of information that has to be correct. You may be asked the same question in the same spot 1,000 times during the day, but remember, you'll be asked by 1,000 different guests, each for the first time. If you don't know the answer to a particular question, and clearly direct the guest to a place where they can get the answer. Co-starring the friendliest cast in the world. I used to have a hat like that. And she still does. Not those colors, but had one of those hats. And then just going through some more pages of the book. Every guest is a VIP. The Disney look is emphasized in this book. The show, safety, courtesy, show efficiency. You know those keys. Then we get into the history of Disney a little bit. And Disney tradition, 50 years of Disney. And you can see it all started with a mouse. And takes you just a little bit through some of the history of Disney. So that's everything that's in this initial Disney traditions folder. This is just a snapshot of things back in the day. A lot of it's changed for what happens now. But hope you enjoyed this. If you're interested, we may go over a little bit more exactly what kind of stuff I went through besides just some of these quizzes and some of the early history and little lectures we had. But the 3 days of traditions was interesting. It was pretty surreal to go through that and say, wow, I'm actually working here. And spend a couple of days going over history, about the parks. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching, subscribing, sharing, telling your friends. There's going to be some more stories, more things from the archives coming up in the next couple of weeks. Appreciate it. Everybody remember, most importantly, have a good time all the time.